welcome to another edition of the Monday Huddle. We're back after taking Labor Day off, and we're here to talk about the unbeaten teams that we have to cover at Press Pros Magazine, a bunch in Central Ohio, a bunch in the original PressProsMagazine.com area, and one of whom will be playing the team coached by our guest tonight, Matt Burgbacher of Tippecanoe High School, will be joining us about a quarter after the hour, maybe a little bit sooner. The Red Devils are 3-1. They're playing Troy 4-0. And of course, the interesting thing about that is Matt Burgbacher used to coach at Troy. And the man who knows all about that is adjacent to me on the screen, Mr. Sonny Folks. Hello, Sonny.
Good week to you. I'm just amazed. It's week 5 already.
Yep.
You think about how quickly this season has gone by and what we've seen so far. A lot of people wrote in this week. People have texted. People have asked. What's the football season been like? You think so far? What do you guys think? Who have you been impressed with? You've been around. You have been doing what you do longer than what I have been doing, what I do, and it's that time of year when people say, well, how do you assess the first 4 weeks of the season, and what do you think is going to happen the next 5? I think we got a lot better idea than we have a couple of weeks ago, and I'm excited to talk to Matt Burgbacher here in a few minutes because, as you know, we covered his opening game and lost to Bellbrook, and that's a good football team, and I think we even probably predicted that he would go down there and struggle at Bellbrook. But I remember him telling me on a Sunday, after that Friday night game, that we're going to take it 1 week at a time. We got a lot of kids. We've got a lot of new kids. Kids were breaking in, kids that are learning to play, learning to compete. They're going to get better, and we're going to go week by week by week. And that's what they've done. And here they stand 3-1 in the Miami Valley Conference, Miami Valley League, and playing 4-0 Troy. I think a lot of people are surprised by the Troy results that they've had so far, but we'll talk with Matt about this, I'm sure. But it's interesting that Troy has blown out 4 opponents, with the exception of Butler. That was a 16-7 game, but the other 3 they've beaten something like 160-19.
So 53-6, 58-0, and 52-0.
Yeah, so you have to look at who they have played. And I think you got to do that for all the unbeaten teams, especially on this side of the state. I can't speak for what you've seen on Friday night, but I'm sure there's people that are interested in your own view of what you've seen the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, but they're most interested to know how you are able to hook up with us tonight on such a fast internet connection. Why don't you tell everybody about
Well, we do that courtesy of Skynet Rural Internet here in Piqua in downtown. If you're trying to find a better rural Wi-Fi internet, I was up until 2 years ago. I called them. They came out and they fixed me up. If you want to stream better, if you want to work from home, if you got kids that are doing homework, Skynet Wireless Internet in downtown Piqua. You call them at 773-0998. That is Craig and Mike Grissom. They have got West Central Ohio pretty much covered. It's not just Miami County, but they go into, of course, Champaign, which is east of here, Montgomery, which is south of here, certainly Shelby, Allglaze, Mercer, Dark, which is north and east of here. They have service to all those counties. And again, my own example is I had horrible rural internet using the satellite. They fixed it, and it's just better. It's just better. So call them again, 773-0998. That's Skynet Internet in downtown Piqua.
Yeah, we don't have the spinning hourglass anymore from your end, so that's a testament to Skynet Internet.
That was the worst.
They're doing a great job.
That was the worst.
They are every bit as good as a bevy of teams that we have that have yet to taste defeat yet. We mentioned Troy is 4-0. We have in the MAC, we have unbeaten Marion Local in Division 7. We have unbeaten Versailles in Division 6. We have unbeaten Coldwater in Division 5, and I don't think I'm leaving anybody out in the MAC. Aren't those the 3 unbeatens that we have right there?
No, those are the 3 unbeatens, and I have seen Versailles now for 2 consecutive weeks, and I guarantee you somebody's watching who wants to hear what I have to say about Versailles. I think I wrote it pretty good last week and the week before when they played Delphus and beat them 41-0. They almost had a 4th consecutive shutout against New Bremen the other night. New Bremen caught somebody not looking and hit a 50-yard touchdown bomb, some flea flicker, with 2 minutes left to go, and they broke the shutout string. But Versailles is really very good. They're really very good, and the kind of team, guaranteed for you Versailles folks watching in, that's going to get better. If they stay healthy, they're going to get better and better and better. They're so reminiscent of the 2021 team, and I even talked to Mike Osborne, the quarterback, and I said, how do you compare these 2 teams? And paraphrasing, he said, well, we're not as big as that team, but we're quick, we like to hit, and we get better every week. He said, we believe that's our advantage. We know absolutely, yes, sir, he said, we're going to get better every week from here through the end of the season. So they're impressive in that respect. I think their overall team speed is better than the 21 team. They had Jack Osborne and Michael Henry, and they had some people that were really, good on both sides of the ball, and they had pretty good team speed. I think overall this team is probably quicker, not as big, but he does remind you a lot of Carson Bay, and I know you remember that young man very well.
Very well, I certainly do. And who knows? Versailles back in Division 6 this year. With Kirtland, they had a tremendous state championship game in, was it Division 5?
That was Division 5, yes.
Yeah, and they ended Kirtland's long winning streak, which Kirtland had taken the mantle away from Versailles and Al Hetrick's teams. So maybe it's a long way away, but maybe we'll see those 2 teams meet again in Canton. Marion Local was big over Delphus St. John's. Delphus is not the kind of a team, even against Marion, that I expected to lose 56-0. That tells me Marion must really be rounded into shape. So it looks like a tough week for New Bremen when Marion goes into New Bremen this week. Parkway is at Versailles, and then Coldwater will hold serve most likely at home against St. Henry, a team that's really struggling. The Redskins are 1-3. They have to go in, play Chip Otten in his lair, and the game that you will be covering on Friday night, coming back from a surprisingly lopsided loss, not that they lost, but a surprisingly lopsided loss to Marion Local. Minster has not lost to anyone else, and they take on Anna at home. Anna took it on the chin against Coldwater on Friday night, 37-7.
Yeah, they're 3-1, and that did surprise me a little bit that they got nailed by 30 points by Coldwater, because I think I've said this from the beginning. I think Anna is the outlier in the MAC conference this year. I know they're a physical team. I know they like to run the ball. I thought they would be able to throw the ball maybe more and better than what they have thus far, but I'm interested to watch them play on Friday night. There's something about Anna and they seem to relish the underdog role. And I know that a lot of people are going to think that Minster with Brogan Steffi and that bunch of kids they got that can run and catch the ball are going to, hand one to them. But I think that game will be competitive. I think Minster, again, when you've got somebody who can throw the ball 50, 60 times, it's so hard at any level of football. Ask anybody in the NFL. Somebody's going to slip. Somebody's going to make mistaken coverage. Somebody's going to be left wide open. And if the game's competitive and it's close, you're beat. And that's Minster's advantage, because they are not afraid to throw the ball. But I think it's going to be a very competitive game against Anna, and I'm looking forward to seeing both those teams for the first time Friday night.
Well, also Friday night will be big-time showdown in the Miami Valley League. Tippecanoe is playing host to the Troy Trojans, and the head coach of the Red Devils, Matt Burgbacher, joins us now. Matt, let me get that crazy overlay off the screen, and we'll say hi to your smiling face. Are you? Is that a virtual background, Matt, or are you actually out on your deck, or what's the deal with you outside here tonight?
Yeah, I'm out here on the back patio. I'm going to enjoy this fall weather while we got it. With how hot it's been and everything else, it's kind of nice sitting out here watching some film on my laptop and talking to you guys.
Matt, I want you to characterize the conversation we had, or fill people in a little bit better about the last 3 weeks. We talked after the Bellbrook game, and I just said a few minutes ago, you said, we got a lot of kids learning to play. We're going to get better and better and better 1 week at a time, try to improve. And here you are, 3 weeks with back-to-back-to-back wins. And how's the journey been so far?
It's been very similar to last year. At the beginning of the year, we were just an average football team trying to find our way. And that's kind of where we were this year again, because, back-to-back years where you lose 9 and 8 starters on offense and then 7 and 8 starters on defense, you're replacing a lot of guys. So, and every team's different. So it takes us some time with us as coaches to know our team, but then again, as players to know their team. And who's going to be our leaders? All the dynamics have changed. But, these kids, the last 3 weeks, the schedule's probably fallen in our favor to where we were able to work on some things and build up that confidence. Because I tell you what, after week 1, we were, like I said, just an average football team. But we have gotten better. We've got some identity on offense. We got some identity on defense. Our special teams has been playing outstanding. And, when you got to replace a first-team All-State kicker in Jackson Cleather, that's going to take some time. And our kids have really taken advantage of the opportunity that they've had. And it's been a lot of fun because, again, there's a lot of challenges with this. But, again, I think, too, our program is where we're at because of the work and the consistency that the kids have put in.
You personally, but Alan Brads, our young writer, has, I thought, done a great job of giving people an idea of what you're doing. I've read his stories with interest, and it seems to me that you're learning and you're winning and you're getting a lot of different kinds of contributions. It's not just the passing game, not the running game. You mentioned your special teams. Is Alan getting that right, that you are doing a lot of things are coming along at the right time for you?
They are, and it's just not 1 or 2 or 3 guys. It's, you look at our stats, our offensive stats, just rushing the ball. We've got, I want to say, 6 or 7 guys that are either at 100 or close to 100 yards rushing. Just because we don't have that one guy, we've got a multitude of guys. You look at our receiving. I think we have 10 guys with receptions this year. So it's just not one guy that we're looking to when we throw the ball. We've got multiple guys that we can play. And one thing we had early on in the season too was we were rotating a lot of guys in there because we had a lot of great competition on the practice field during camp, during training camp, and during that first week against Bellbrook. So it took us a little bit of time. Now we're narrowing that down a little bit, but still, we've been able to 2 platoon for the most part. And for us, that's a huge advantage when we're going against some of these teams that are playing guys both ways for 48 minutes plus all special teams. We've had some great contributions from some young guys, sophomores on those special teams. Like, one I can say is our kickoff team. We've had 1 touchback, but we've had, I want to say, 8 tackles inside the 20-yard line on kickoffs this year. That's impressive because, Cade may not get the distance on it, but he's getting the height. And by the time guys catch the ball down around the 5-yard line, we're already inside the 25-yard line. Then we just got to make the play, and our kids are making the plays.
So I had the privilege of watching you guys during your great playoff run last year, and was just so impressed with your leadership on the team, the culture that you built. And I've been interested this year to see how you filled some of those holes with some of those guys that were senior leaders for you last year. Obviously, quarterback position with Liam Peronsky doing such a tremendous job for you. Tell me who's running the show for you and what you like about what you're getting from that position.
Right now, we started out week 1 with Logan Butera playing quarterback. He's a little bit better of a runner than he is throwing the ball. And that was kind of our game plan going into week 1. But then week 2, we made a change. Peyton Schultz and Braden Burgbacher kind of switched some roles until Braden got hurt in the Fairborn game. So Peyton has taken charge of the offense, and he's done a great job the last couple of weeks. And, I think where we have the advantage too is our quarterbacks completely understand our system. and what we want to do. And again, it's a whole new quarterback too. So us coaches, we've got a learning curve too of what do these kids do well. And the last thing we wanted to do this year was compare our quarterbacks to Liam Peronsky, or compare our wide receivers to Stanley Klein, or our offensive linemen to Eli Moore. Our kids are who they are, and we've got to adapt to their strengths. And we're doing a better job, and Peyton's doing a really good job of distributing the ball throughout the offense, whether it's handing it off to whomever or getting the ball out in space to guys that can make plays. And he's done a really, really good job of that.
You know, we've talked before about, and you've done this before. You've built programs before when you were at Laramie, and I think you had a little break-in period there at Troy, and certainly now at Tipp, you're doing it again this year. And ironically, the league around you is doing it as well, because, you know, I don't think anybody expected Piqua to be 0-4, and I don't think anybody expected Greenville to have the struggles that they have. And, you know, Butler and Sydney, tell me a little bit about how that's going to play for you. Starting this Friday night, you've got a team that I know that can't wait, you know, to get out there and butt heads with you. They're 4-0. They've outscored a lot of people. I don't know that they've really been challenged before, but that's got to be an advantage for you to say, hey, look, we might be the best team that they've played or anybody has played in this league.
Well, you know, I go back to 2015 when I did get the Troy job. I had a great conversation with Bill Neese and at Piqua, and the only piece of advice he gave me was, you better pack your lunch every day, because it is tough. This league is tough. And that was back when we were in the GWalk, and Bill was right. Even when you have a very good team, you still have to prepare, because winning's hard. Winning is hard, and Bill was completely right. So, you know, and you look at our league now with Dave Tainer up there at Sydney and what he's doing, and Greg Bonifay down at Stebbins, and Larry Cox at Fairborn, and Troy Everhart at Troy, Bill Neese. You know, I can go down the line, and we have some great football coaches in this league. And so Bill's right. This year, no different. We've packed our lunch every day, because we know we have to go to work, and we've got to play our best, because we're going to get everybody's best shot. You know, speaking of this week's game, for some reason over the last 5 years, this it doesn't matter what sport it is, the Troy Tipp rivalry has, I think, tripled. It is a lot of excitement. I know the basketball games are awesome, volleyball games are awesome, and obviously the football games are awesome. And it is, you know, we're expecting a huge crowd down there at City Park this weekend, and it's, you know, it's everything that you want for high school athletics. You know, they're 4-0, we're 3-1, we're both 3-0 in the league. It's going to be exciting, and we know it's going to be a huge challenge. I'm not going to say this is the best Troy team I've coached against, but they're right up there with some of those other teams that we've had to play against there from Troy. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball when they want to throw the ball. And this is the best Troy defense that we have definitely seen. They are very aggressive. They come after you. And it's just going to be an exciting game, because we know a lot of the actually not as many now, but we know a few of those coaches there, and they know us. So, you know, there's really going to be no secrets, and it's just going to go out to execution and who can execute better.
So I'm curious. Tell me a little bit about Troy. And I saw them last year, right about this time of the season. They went up to Piqua and just got really, really rudely treated. And now I look at their scores, and their scores look exactly like Piqua's scores were a year ago before they really stomped all over Troy. So Troy Everhart must have really done a great job in the offseason and really got those kids to believe, because even after that Piqua game last year, you know, they turned their season around and saved their season and probably built a lot of momentum for this year.
They did. And they've got a very, very good senior class this year. You know, when I watch film, and, you know, fortunately for me, I know a lot of these kids because they were the same age as my son. So a lot of them stayed the night at our house when we were there in Troy, and their nucleus that they have, you know, has been the key, because they've been able to build around that. You can start on the defensive line with Devin Strobel. He's one of the best defensive linemen that I've ever coached against. Just physical, big, fast, you name it. Devin Strobel can do it. And then you go on the other side of the ball and you got Jahari Ward, 6 foot, 225 pounds, and Jahari can run. So we know it's going to be a great challenge, and defensively, it's just not Devin Strobel. They got a lot of great defensive players, and offensively, obviously, Jahari could do it on his own if it wasn't for his line and everybody else. So it's not like we can just focus on one guy and forget about everybody else. We need 11 guys doing our job, doing their job, and doing it together. And then we've got a great chance of being successful, but be a huge challenge for us.
As you know, I get a few miles in throughout the year and travel a little bit, and I've talked to so many coaches and people who are struggling with numbers. I'm amazed that you have the number of the amount of participation at Tipp City greater than any other coach in any other time in Tipp's football history. I think you told me you had 105 or 106 kids, in the 4 grades. I know there's going to be interested people from other parts of the state, because we pick them up every week, that are listening to what's going on in this area in West Central Ohio. Tell people a little bit about what you have done in the short time at Tipp to ingratiate kids to football the way you have.
There's so many little things that you have to do, I feel, in building a program. And especially in today's day and age where kids just don't have one option. They've got with social media, with just everything that's out there. These video games that they have out here now, that's crazy. Back in our day, we had the Atari, and we had the one joystick that we had to play with. I see my son, and he's got all kinds of stuff up there in his bedroom, and it's like, what the heck is this stuff? So you gotta make it fun. There's just, again, like I said, there's so many different facets, but I think the biggest thing that we do, and we do well, is the camaraderie we have. Kids want to be a part of it. And it's tough when you have 106 kids and to get everybody playing time. But them being a part of our program, it's bigger than themselves. And we recruit the heck out of our hallways. We don't have open enrollment. We've got what we got. And I tell our coaches that in our preseason meeting, this is what we have. We've got to make the most of it. Let's find these strengths. Let's find our weaknesses. Let's, build those weaknesses up. But then again, let's build on those strengths that we have. So every team we're going to have is a little bit different. But I think the biggest thing is every kid in our program matters, and they feel like they matter. And that's the most important thing. Everybody's got a role, and a lot of people, and winning helps too. When you're winning, a lot of people want to be a part of that. And fortunately for us, we've been able to do that the last few years. So our numbers do continue to grow. So it's a lot of fun being around the kids. And that's the thing. We got some great families, great kids here at Tipp that are coachable. We may be a little undersized. Teams, maybe a little bit faster than us, stronger than us. But when you got 11 guys out on the field doing the same thing, working for the same goal, you have a great chance of being successful. And that's what we have in our Tipp kids.
Well, if you could bottle that, I think you could supplement your income by selling it, because there's a lot of people across the state that are concerned outwardly within the community about what we got to do to get more kids, not just playing football, but playing other sports as well. So I love what you do, and I love the way you do it. So you know that, and we've talked about that for years together. So congratulations on what you've gotten going this year.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it.
Well, Matt, we'll let you go. Good luck this week, and maybe I'll see you down the road.
All right. I'm hoping, because we know, I guess if we see Bruce, we're doing something right.
That's for sure. Have a good night, Matt. Matt Burgbacher, he's a good guy, and I'll tell you what, he had a heck of a team last year, man. I haven't seen him this year, but boy, the way those kids played against Western Brown and against Hamilton Baden, and they know what they're doing down there. And he's right; those kids really do enjoy playing for him as well. They should.
There's so many good football coaches, and there's so many different types of personalities among coaches. I just don't know of anybody who is a Pied Piper for kids who want, again, to be a part of something bigger than themselves than what Matt and his staff have done, at Tipp City. He has always been that way. It isn't just a recent phenomenon. He was that way as a player. He was that way as a baseball player. He was that way at Lorme. He's that way at Troy, and he's certainly. He said he wanted to go home to his home school and coach and see if he couldn't do or bring the same kind of enthusiasm for football that he had at the other places, and he's done that because when he went there, I think somebody said that he had 63 kids. 63 kids. Now he's got 106 in the program. So whatever he's doing it right.
Yes, indeed. He certainly is. And that'll be a heck of a game. And we will have our Jeff Gilbert on that. Am I correct?
Gibby will be there Friday night. And we will have a couple games here Friday night up and down I-75. Don't know what the second one would be. I think one of the interesting games is going to be the game at Troy Christian. I think that game, they're 2-2. Milton is 2-2. I saw Milton last week do some things that look very reminiscent of the team that they had last year. They just had 30 more kids in uniform because they had such a huge senior class. But they played very well in just competing up at Lehman last week in a game they probably should not have won. But, their defense gave them 5 tremendous minutes at the very end of the game. Got a turnover on a fumble and a return for a touchdown. Then an interception. And Jordan Foose, who had 178 yards rushing last week, just the next really hard running back, in a succession of kids that have been good at that position for Brett Pierce and the Bulldogs. So we might slip in and see that game at Troy Christian this week with Milton Union.
Sounds good. We have some teams in Central Ohio that are getting it done, particularly in the OCC Central, which is really loaded so far. We've got Dublin Coffman with Garen Stokes, the former Minster coach, is off to a 3-1 start. They won their intra-district battle against Jerome on Friday night. Our Steve Blackledge covered that one. Hilliard Davidson took down Hilliard Darby, similar score to the Kaufman-Jerome final. Davidson is 4-0. They played this week at Olentangy Berlin. We had Berlin the first week at Hilliard Bradley. Berlin lost that game. They have not lost since. Bradley has not lost at all. Their quarterback, Braden Fleehardy, is headed for Yale. He has Bradley off to a 4-0 start. Upper Arlington is also in the OCC Central. They're 3-1. So we've got 2 4-0 teams, Bradley and Hilliard Davidson, both from Hilliard. We've got Dublin Coffman with Garen Stokes coaching those guys up at 3-1. Upper Arlington is 3-1. And Olentangy Liberty's 0-4, but they started, I think, 0-3 last year and turned it around. They play a really, really tough non-league schedule, including Cleveland Glenville. And I would not doubt Liberty being able to beat somebody and maybe a few somebodies before this season is out.
Well, I think, again, to what you just said, it answers a lot of questions that people at this time of the year write in. And if anybody wants to email, they can email me, Sonny at PressProsMagazine.com, or just the prompt, contact us within the story, and that'll come through us. We get a lot of people who are obviously interested in football. I think people now are becoming more aware that when teams like Piqua are 0-4 and Greenville has struggled, Milton Union, with whom there has been so much interest in recent 3 years, is 2-2. But you can see the groundwork there at Milton and the coaching and how much they have improved just over the last couple of weeks. They've lost a couple of tough games to Oakwood and Valley View, but they're obviously in it for the long haul. So I think there's a lot of young football teams. He mentioned Sydney. Butler is fighting. Coach Geith down there is they're working hard to get better there. Just a lot of youth. Lehman only got 26 kids, but they can do some things. They throw the ball very well. They're leading the Three Rivers Conference in passing. They ran it a little bit last week to kind of take some of the pressure off of Donovan O'Leary, and their quarterback. So, they're in a league that's young, just like the MVL. I think the MAC is showing its youth this year. I don't know that they're going to be as strong across the board as what Marion Local is, but Delphus is certainly competitive. We know that New Bremen's going to be competitive. Minster's 3-1. I still think that Anna's going to be tough. I still think they're going to break some hearts. Obviously, Coldwater is going to be what Coldwater is usually. They're 4-0 and got a very winnable game against St. Henry this weekend. I think a lot of people are questioning what's wrong at St. Henry. I don't even know that people in St. Henry know what's wrong in St. Henry. So I just think that it's one of those transition years, and suddenly next year that you're going to have everybody wondering how so many people got so much better in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, speaking of Coldwater, their margin against Anna surprised me. A 30-point win, 37-7, and they are really throwing the ball well. Balin Blockberger, their junior quarterback, is really spreading the ball around. And then I said to you today, what's wrong with Coldwater? They don't run the ball very well. And then I looked and they're averaging 4.5 yards a carry. So if Chip's watching, if Chip Otten or any of his coaches are watching, I apologize for doubting your running game before I looked at the stats. Because the stats show me you're averaging 4.5 yards a carry. And I know some of that might be affected by the fact that didn't Cody DePuig have like a 90-some yard touchdown run in one of their games? That might have skewed their per carry average a little bit.
Well, he's had some big runs. Cody is a young guy getting to play that position for the first time significantly this year. But if you go back and you think about what they've been like, their balance has always been phenomenal. And the kids that can run it are also kids that they can put out in the pattern and can catch it as well. They are so, ask Bell Fountain how tough it is to prepare for Coldwater, because I did, ask their coach after the game, and he said, well, they did some things that, we didn't expect them to do. We knew they could do it, and we knew we had seen them do it with this personnel, but we hadn't seen them do it with this personnel. So they've got a couple of kids named Harleman that can run, that can catch it. Cody Depweg can do it out of the backfield, and of course Balin Blockberger, like maybe not as well at this point as what Blassingame did it last year, but he can tuck it down and run. He's not afraid to go downfield and pick up a first down with his feet when he has to.
Yeah. Well, they're always good, and they're good again this season. Now we have a kind of a headline non-conference game in Central Ohio this week. Watterson is 4-0, and they're playing Chardon, which has been a dominant team in Northeast Ohio for a long time. So we may find some Press Pros personnel on the sidelines of Chardon and Watterson on Friday night. The other games that we're looking at, certainly Hilliard Bradley 4-0 at Dublin Jerome, and also might take a look at that Davidson at Olentangy Berlin game.
Might be a few people take a look at the Buckeyes on Saturday. They improved significantly over their opening game against Indiana, and I think just a matter of time until they play, until the quarterback gets his feet on the ground. But I thought they were much better offensively the other day. Certainly Marvin Harrison, who had 11 catches for 160 yards, looked like his self. And, Travion Henderson, I think, only had about 70 yards, but gosh, he looked quicker, he looked strong, he looked better. And obviously Youngstown benefited from the portal last year, because I saw them play Dayton last year at home, and they are a far, far better football team this year than what I saw last year against Dayton. So, they got Western Kentucky coming in there this week. I have seen Western Kentucky play the last couple of years in Huntington against Marshall, and they're a wide open football team. They're going to challenge you. They're going to make you defend all 11 guys on the field. So that'll be an interesting game.
It will be an interesting game. And then, Ohio State has a game that a lot of people have their eyes on about 10 days from now at Notre Dame on a Saturday night, Notre Dame Stadium. You're smiling. You can't even stop from smiling thinking about going over there to Notre Dame Stadium to shoot that game. Is that the first time you ever shot a game at Notre Dame?
Stadium. I have been outside that stadium, been there for baseball one time, couldn't get inside the stadium just to look around. But, you talk about the horseshoe having history. Nobody's got more history than Notre Dame Stadium. So when you think about all the great players and all the great people who have been there, Rudy, not the least of which, No, I just want to see, when they made Rudy, the thing that caught my eye wasn't Rudy. It was that there was a scene there with a beautiful Ford tractor, Dove Gray and Ford Red, that's parked in the end zone. And I just wonder if that was a prop or whether it's actually parked under the stadium. I'm going to be interested to see. I'm going to be asking somebody, where's the Ford tractor? Because you know me and Ford tractors.
Yes, I do. I know you and Ford tractors. Well, that'll be an interesting one to watch. And I don't know if Ohio State gets by that one, then I'll maybe start to believe a little bit. I know they're saying the clock rules are holding them back on offense, but I watched USC on Saturday night, and nothing's holding USC back from scoring touchdowns. I know that.
I don't think there's anything to be particularly concerned about as far as Ohio State. They are immensely talented. They have got more athleticism, and I've said this 100 times in the last decade. They're more athletic than any team I've ever seen. It's just talent, and more talent. Their depth is there. Honestly, I'll tell you two guys that I've really enjoyed watching their progress. Tommy Eichenberg is just a really good player at linebacker. He and Steel Chambers, and those guys have been there, have just played, and I know coaching has got a lot to do with it, but just the opportunity. People talk about you got to learn how to win. Well, there's only one way of learning how to win. That's you got to play. You got to have that opportunity to go out and play against somebody different from what you see in practice. I think those two guys have really, really been good. And Jack Sawyer, by the way, he is enormous. I don't know if you remember him as a freshman when he came in, played a little bit. Now he's about, 6'4", maybe 6'5", 268 pounds. They list him as a rush end. He can play draw back and play some coverage as a linebacker. They've got people. They've just got really good talent. And I believe, again, if you stay healthy, which is important, they're going to get better and better and better as the season goes on. So I think they get Western Kentucky under their belt. It's going to be very interesting to watch them go to South Bend.
Well, our Jeff Gilbert will chronicle whatever they do, and Sonny will be shooting photos at least for this week. We've got one fearless prediction coming in on the Troy-Tipp game. Josh Kemp says Troy will beat Tipp. I noticed he didn't send that while Matt Burgbacher was on the line, but we'll see if Troy beats Tipp or not on Friday night, and Jeff Gilbert will be at that game as well, and that'll certainly be our headline game of the weekend because those are two really great programs and a lot of history there with Matt having coached at Troy.
I got 2 or 3 texts here since we've been on the air. He said, who are you picking, Troy and Tipp, on Friday? You'll have to wait till Thursday. You can read it on Press Pros.
That's right. All right, before we get on out of here, anything you want to share with the folks?
Only that, again, we are sponsored in part every week on the Monday Night Huddle by the Orthopedic Associates of Southwest Ohio. They've got about, 7, 8, 9 different offices from Cincinnati all the way to Lima, from the Indiana line over to Urbana. They do a great job of taking care of all facets of the orthopedic condition, as they say, with expertise and compassion. Excellent hosts this year of the Friday Night Picks on Press Pros every week. We will have that up Thursday night for you. And again, they are partial sponsors, along with Skynet Rural Internet, of the Monday Night Huddle with you here on Press Pros. And we certainly appreciate their help. And that's a great relationship. It's been good for us, and I hope it's been good for them.
Absolutely. And we want to thank everybody who reads our content on a daily basis for the kind emails and for the sharing of our content on the weekends. That helps us keep our numbers up, which helps us attract advertisers, which helps us keep our content free. We are one of the few free sites out there. A lot of sites will ask you to pay for content. We do not do that. We love the fact that you can share it with your friends and they don't run into a paywall and they don't have to try 4 different computers at home to beat the browser walls that are out there for some sites. At Press Pros, everything is free all the time, and we want to keep it that way. So you help us do that by just sharing our stories with friends of yours, and that way we can deliver results for our advertisers, which allows you to access our content whenever you want, however you want, and with whomever you want. So with that, follow us on Instagram at Press Pros Mag, at Press Pros Magazine. The Twitter handle, the X handle, as they say, is at Press Pros Mag. Facebook, we're Press Pros Magazine. And we will be back on the next Monday night with another edition of the Monday Huddle, when I will officially be 1 year older. So with that, Mr. Folks, would you like to say goodbye?
I'm only going to say this, that people have written in and said, hey, I hope you can do great volleyball coming up here. And it is great in Division 4 and Division 3, ranked teams throughout this area. And we have great volleyball content coming up here within conference play in both the Shelby County League, particularly, and the MAC teams that are going to be there in November at the Nutter Center for the OHSAA finals. And we're going to see a bunch of those teams play here over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we got that for you. Not just football, but volleyball as well.
That's right. And with that, good night, everybody. We'll see you again next week.
You bet.